Okay. Have we broadcasted and recorded? Okay. We're a few minutes late. We just getting everything set up. Thank you for your patience. We're going to go ahead and start tonight's session of the Sustainable Energy, Sustainable Homes seminar series. Tonight is our builders panel. Building right is the official topic. And what we're going to do is split this up in the first half, second half. And the goal is to kind of take a comprehensive look at residential construction, new build or renovation projects from beginning to end. So we'll start with the design side. We're going to have some builders that will be consistent through the whole seminar since they're involved in the start to finish of the project. And then we'll move towards some finishing and energy rating guests on the second half of the night. So a little bit of housekeeping. This space is the University of Idaho Integrated Design Lab. And for those of you that are new, thanks for coming. And what we have is we have access to the classroom, and we're asked to stay out of the lab because of their equipment and sensitive equipment they have over there. And so there's a bathroom that's down the hall and a couple of corners down to the right. Just keep making your way down the hallway. The tricky part is they've just installed a door with a keypad lock, so that only people that are supposed to be in the building can use the restroom, and that is 1521. I'll remind you again at the halftime. Oh, you did? Okay, so Goldie's taking care of it. It's a free-for-all zone. You put the doorstop in the jam there. We're trying to get our title slide up. That'll be behind our panel the whole time, but that will give you a. Oh, okay. We might not do that because of the layout of the room tonight, but anyway, that just gives a look at our title, at our sponsors, and we have quite a few. Please visit our website, usgbcidaho.org, on the Sustainable Energy, Sustainable Homes page. We list all of our sponsors. You can go back to all of our old topics and go to a YouTube and review them. You can download the presenter slides, and if you've got a real interest in them, you can contact the presenter directly and talk further. So with that, we're going to jump into the panel, and we've got Josh Bogle. Scott Flynn, we've got Goldie with Flying Cowboys Design Build, and Scott. So this is our panel for the first half, and it's fair game questions from everybody. And first half, we're focused on the first phases of construction: so design, siting, materials selection, all the things that go into considering the home and launching the project. So I think that I'll go ahead and kick off with, we have some stock questions in place. I'll just go ahead and kick off with one to get things rolling. And then audience members, including those out there on the interwebs, are welcome to jump in anytime. So thanks, everybody, for being on the panel. And I think we'll just start with a real broad question. And what does sustainable homes mean to you? Josh, we'll put you on the spot first.
I don't know. I was hoping first that's oh, hey, it turned on. Yeah, I was hoping somebody would shoot their hand up and go, oh, me. Sustainable. So, yeah, I don't know. It's tricky depending on how you go on it. The short answer for me may not be possible. But ideally, a home that works really, really well for the people that live there, is super healthy, is going to last 100, 150 years. At the end of its lifespan, you push it over and it's a compost pile, and you can grow stuff in it. So, ideally. That has certain tricks to it.
Very nice. For me, I think the thing that resonates the most with me is the energy efficiency aspect of homes. Expenses are getting higher every day, except for oil prices these days. But that's one aspect that's really important, is being able to afford to live in your home, especially with the larger the homes get. Tie that in with basically the sustainable function of using or reusing materials. That's kind of goes hand in hand for me.
I think you have to step back even before you start building and designing a home. I think it comes with I see sustainability as an enlightened awareness of what's possible and working in that direction no matter what the cost. So, and I'm not talking like cost of materials. I'm just saying you push forward with what you know is right. It's like sustainability to me is like a mentality, and then you can design and build from there.
Well, thanks. So you guys covered most of it. The energy a building uses is always my primary concern. I've always been blown away by that statistic or that graph of how much energy a home uses over its entire life. So I put a real high bar on in the design phase is important, but getting as airtight an envelope and as insulated an envelope as my client can afford and that as we can build. Because if that thing is going to sit there for 30 or 100 years, it's going to use a tremendous amount of energy, and I want that to be as low as possible. So that's my biggest single focus.
So yeah, I think that they covered most of the major points. For me personally, it's also the energy efficiency side of things. I think that, like Goldie said, the amount of energy that building consumes by its operation is so much more than the embodied energy that might go into the materials. I think that choosing sustainable materials is also important. You know, I think we didn't mention maybe use of water, efficient use of water resources. But I think that the energy efficiency, the goal to reduce the carbon footprint of buildings in general, I think that needs to be that is the goal right now in energy efficient building.
And I'm going to take moderator liberty and add one more thing to that, and that is the concept of the Living Building Challenge, which is a design concept where the building only uses the resources that happen to land on site, that being the wind power, the solar power, the water resources. And there's a house that's being built in somewhere in Montana. I'm not sure exactly the city. I just happened to watch a presentation about it, and it's being built for $148 a square foot, which they claim is on par with new construction in their community. And they will be off grid. They won't have a connection to the sewer. They won't have a connection to the electric utility or the natural gas utility. They do plan on having a backup generator in case stuff goes wrong, but I mean that to me is a goal in sustainable building. And energy efficiency, compostable materials all help get there. Obviously, you have to incorporate some renewable technology to power your home, but it can be done. There's a 6-story office building in Seattle that's completely disconnected from the local utilities, 6 stories. So I'm going to open up to the audience. Anybody have a question toward the beginning phases of residential construction? Yeah, you guys are going to have to get creative with your questions. I only have so many. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so from beginning phases of things you're talking about, I kind of like you talked about first of being able to have a home given spec for a very reasonable, usable length of time, and then essentially you turn it into a compost pile. So what kind of that? I mean, I'm just curious on something like that. What kind of materials are you looking at? Where you get 100, 150 years, and then you can kind of push the button, and all of a sudden they will break down, be reusable. And from that aspect.
So I'm going to repeat the question for our audience out there on the internet. The question is, what kind of materials do you choose to achieve that compostable end goal?
I didn't realize my inner hippie was just going to hijack myself tonight. But that is something that in working with homes, I frequently do sort of have in the back of my mind in looking at different materials. Insulation, I think, is a good one to talk about there, because spray foam insulation really works well if your focus is really all about energy and making the home tight, and it fits your budget. It would be hard to do any better than spray foam insulation. I'm not sure at the end of its lifespan what happens to it. And so so things like that always give me this little nagging concern. And I think that probably part of why that happens for me is because most of my work is remodeling. And so I'm frequently taking places apart. I'm making runs to the dump. I'm trying to figure out how to dispose of things, or get wood to the chipper, or metal to the metal recycling, or reusable things directly to second chance or Habitat's restore. But so in sort of that first answer, that's kind of one of those maybe sort of semi-unattainable goals, but it is still always in the back of my mind that I'm working on stuff that somebody did 20 years ago or 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And the stuff that I touch, that's happening. That's going to keep happening. Somebody else is going to come in and is going to have to figure out how to, when stuff ends its serviceable lifespan, what becomes of it? Where does it go? Does it become, can it somehow be recycled and become another useful or usable material? And, and that's way bigger than any of us as builders or suppliers can deal with, because you see, there's the recycling chain, there's so many pieces to our whole, supply and waste cycle to get there. But there are things, so insulation, cellulose insulation. Cellulose is, ground up paper, ground up newspaper. It is recycled. At the point where it's done, do I feel comfortable rototilling it into my yard? I do feel comfortable rototilling it into my yard. So that's something that I know that, this material works really well. It's readily available. The cost on it is good. It's something that, unless there's a reason I should choose something else because of some specific situation, it's going to be a material of choice for me.
Wouldn't it be kind of like, what if things didn't fall apart?
That was my next thing. Instead of trying to, figure out to build something, why not try to work towards building something to, see it doesn't last forever, keep it from exposure.
That's that durability piece that we're all familiar with, and it's shameful to even talk about a house only lasting 30 years. I don't think that's anything to be proud about. I think we should be at least on 100, even with wood framed homes. You look at Europe, they're 200, 300, 800-year-old. It's like, but they're made out of rock. The comfort is probably not there, and we have standards that clientele want these days. That, you can build a house out of rock, but you're still going to have to put, a 2x6 wall inside and insulate it. So, yeah, if you built a house out of, with spray foam and it lasted 200 years, is that worth it? Where's that? What's the trade-off? Where's the trade-off?
Yeah.
While we're talking about that kind of stuff, especially the durability point that we're making, is if a house, if it reaches the end of its life, and it could be its functional life, if there's another, there's a whole bunch of housing stock out there that is perfectly well built, but extremely poorly insulated. So it's not cost effective to, not always cost effective, but sometimes it's cheaper to take it to the dump, unfortunately, than it is to go ahead and build it new. But I love the model of like the European cars, those guys have to take back their old cars and disassemble them? Doesn't that sound cool? I mean, so what if that's the only time I can think that I would be okay with more regulation? If we're going to go demolish an old house, if we're required to take it apart, would be better than just leaving it up to finances like we do right now. It's just right now it's just money. And so, anyway.
I think that it's a combination of both of those points. I think that we need to build that so that it'll last as long as it can, 200, 300 years, as long as possible. But there will come a point where something needs to be replaced, or there are better ways to insulate or to keep the weather out. And so I think you almost have to think about a retrofit that's going to happen 100 years down the road and try to use materials that will facilitate that. So the cellulose example, that's a good product to use. You can dispose of it or it'll just go away. But the spray foam, maybe that isn't easy to even get out of the building to do your retrofit. So I think that it's taking both of those points and putting it together.
Oh, the microphone is for the people in the camera over there, is my understanding. I had some clients the other day where this came up about what was going to happen with the insulation, and he guaranteed me that within the next 20 to 30 years there will be I don't know whether he said microbes, bacteria, or something, which will eat that spray foam insulation, that will have engineered something. So maybe I don't know if that's going to happen.
I guess I would add one thing to that, and that's the only home built that I've been involved in was a straw bale home, and the goal was to have building materials that would turn into compost at the end of the lifespan, and that's straw and locally sourced sand, silt, and clay. But when it comes to keeping water out of home, which is very important for durability, straw doesn't cut it. You need petroleum products, bitumen, and things that on the windowsills that keep the water off of the wood and straw. And so those concessions were made even by the hippy-dippy builders that wanted everything to be compostable. So there are certain things, especially when it comes to water tightness of a building, you can't really compromise on.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I taking over? No. Okay. My question was, well, first off, they can make a lot of cool stuff out of elephant dew. So but I don't think we were going to be making our homes out of elephant poop. My question more has to do with the marketability. As I'm coming from more of the pull-through mechanism that you folks as builders look at. Do you think there's a way to make the sustainable, healthy home more marketable? And as to say, is there a market? And if there is a market, which there obviously is, or you wouldn't be here, how do you drive the expansion of the market? I mean, what are the value propositions for the homeowners who are coming into Boise and they're going to buy a home from you, Scott? Is it Scott? I talked with you early on when we built our home. And Josh, I talked with you on the phone, but you probably don't remember that. But anyway, what we were looking to do was to build a green and a healthy home that was also perhaps a mainstream home that could be for the masses. So we wanted to build one that was cost effective. We wanted the value. We wanted the durability. But we also wanted the health benefits. So I guess a long-winded way of saying, how do we create the market for those kinds of homes that are more common rather than being the home for the wealthy? Because I'm sure a lot of your clients, I know Scott's clients are in the upper tier, I think. I mean, I could be wrong, but you were more expensive than I could afford anyway. But anyway, that's my question.
That's a great question. I mean, that is the overall question, right? We have to remember here that none of us on this panel speculate. We don't borrow hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars and risk that by building a product and putting it on the market. So we don't, as of now, none of us here can say, hey, I take the risk and I'm successful at it. But you're asking about the value and the marketability and what we're able to say relative to any other builders, right? We can use verbiage, we can use examples from our clients, we have so much more wherewithal to share with the market, improve our claims than any other builders out there. So why isn't it taking off? It's
kind of my question. Why aren't we seeing this huge surge of people? If you can have it all, green, healthy, affordable, you can have it all now. Why isn't there a bigger demand? And if there isn't, how do we create that demand?
Yeah.
Can I add 2 cents to that? We get a lot of requests for information on products. Typically, the market for green building is much smaller than just standard normal construction. The products are still being created and coming up the supply chain, so they cost more. And it's an education thing. I couldn't tell you how many times I've gone into a home and asked questions of my real estate agent at that home. Tell me about this home, and I know more about it than they do. We've got to educate the people that are promoting and marketing the products. There is a market out there for sustainable homes. But when it comes down to the dollar, they're going to default to a less expensive product unless it's really important to them. And once you explain the importance, then you're halfway there.
Yeah, the finger I point is at our metric, which is we have this, our metric for homes is price per square foot. And I don't know, what other product would we talk about being dealt with in that way? Is it, how big a loaf of bread can I get for $1.50? Is it, it really is, if your metric is how much can I get for as little as I put into it, then you are setting up a system that is incentivized for lack of quality, lack of care, lack of oversight. So that's what our metric is for homes, is that, oh, hey, what's the price per square foot? Then, then we're not saying, is this house more likely to contribute to or help my child's asthma? Is this house going to be easy to maintain over time? And so I do think that there are, that educated consumers are in fact saying, oh, it's not that I need to buy the cheapest out there. It's that this is what my budget is. I have, whatever. I have $175,000. I have $250,000. And so within that price range, what are my values? What is it I believe in? Do I believe in health? Do I believe in durability? Do I believe in energy efficiency? And if, and I don't, and how do we help there be more people who are willing to put that effort in? Goldie knows.
So we just take it for granted right now that when you buy your car, it has a gas mileage rating. Why is that so simple and that completely permeates our culture? What's the mileage? What's the mileage? So we've got to have some rating like that for the house. It's that simple. And if it has to come from some large entity so that it can be kind of standardized to level the playing field. And
The HERS score.
no, but that's the whole point. It's about mandating it. In other words, if every home was sold with a HERS score, then there's going to be a bunch of builders that are embarrassed they built that. And then there's going to be a bunch of people that, can say, oh, well, do I really want that? Because, the score is so bad.
We were on a panel for the Green Expo 5 years ago or so. And the realtor said, we can't stigmatize homes. It would stigmatize homes. The ones that were poor performers, it would stigmatize those homes. So it's
and that gets back to the inertia of the industry. It's like there's only a handful of people that do stuff like we do with air tightness and framing, and it's so hard to teach everybody to do that, or a large enough segment of builders and people to do that. But
let me add a comment to this, because last year at the Parade of Homes, fully half of the homes had a HERS rating. And I'm not sure how many it's going to be this year, but it's probably going to be more, larger fraction than last year. So little by little, that's creeping in. At least it will help with new housing, and people will start to become aware of it. So I think there is some hope for moving there. I'm not sure how fast.
It was about 3 years ago when the state, who was it? He was the ex-builder. Shoot, I'm dropping. But he worked for the state. They were gonna give everybody a free HERS score in the parade of homes, and the BCA said no way, because most of those builders, they'd have a score higher than 100. They build illegal homes, and they just don't want to. They can't risk the liability.
That's a real problem, and it's a problem for used homes in particular, because now when we're getting a lot of homes that have a HERS in the 60s, and a lot of used homes have a HERS in the 130s. So now that's going to develop a competition between new homes and existing homes that's going to be interesting.
Cash for clunker style. And we should note that HERS, a score of 100 is equivalent to Energy Star benchmark. Is that how it works? Code built home is 100.
The lower you go, the more energy efficient.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not quite even that. A HERS of 100 is one that is built to the 2006 IECC standards. Okay, and then any other HERS is one that for the same house but built better, what percentage of the cost of energy in that 2006 home, what percentage would this home have? So a HERS rating of 60 means that you'll use about 60% of the amount of energy that one built to the IEC 2006 standard.
And IECC is International Energy Conservation Code. Yeah, Alan.
When I was in Nashville at the Healthy Homes Conference, we had the Nashville Greater Association of Realtors gentleman come speak at one of our events, and the question that we put to him was, would there be a market for Nashville area, and could the health metrics be added to the MLS? Would that be a possibility? And they were actually very forward thinking in terms of, he thought there would be a market for a credential, a healthy home advisor. Again, it's not energy, it's not HERS, but it's another factor in a home that you're going to build tight, and you're going to build it that way, and you're going to have energy efficiency. Why not make it healthy? So that the point was that there could be a market for that if we knew how to sell it. It's just, it is somewhat hard to sell. But they said that their MLS already had a lot of green factors there in Nashville. Does our local MLS factor in any of that?
It has LEED, NAHB, HERS score, Energy Star.
Yeah. Well, and I'd like to give Holly a chance to weigh in since we kind of jumped ahead to the valuation side. Holly is our realtor that will be on the second half of the panel, but I'd like to hear what you have to say on this.
Well, I really think that it boils down to education. It's hard to say what comes first, the chicken or the egg. You know, where did the demand come from? And certainly in the real estate community, agents need to be educated. They need to get that information, but they also need to have the support of the organizations that are going to implement the fields in the MLS. And so when we do that, then we'll be able to communicate with appraisers, and they'll be able to document increased value. So until we really have systems in place to be able to document the certifications and therefore value, it's going to take a little while to be able to establish that. And the comps out there are limited. So we do have a good number of those, but it's and more. It's growing every year, and the demand is growing every year. So and in terms of how to sell that, I just got back from the NAHB conference, and it's amazing when you take a look at the data. The demand increases every year, but essentially it's selling someone a healthy home. You know, people make decisions based on emotion, and what affects their emotions are their finances and their health and all of these different factors. So it's communicating to those people on that level taking the green label off of it really and communicating more of a healthy, that it's a healthy home, and people will buy based on that.
I mean, and energy efficiency. I mean, I've got tons of data saying that my homes have an ROI with it. Yeah, it costs more, but you also make money back over time. You know, I've got one client that's, he's like at 50% ROI on the 5,000 extra dollars he spent, and it's a 3-year payback period. I mean, it's no-brainer stuff. It really works. It really does.
I just want to add one more thing before we go to the continuation question, and it's a piggyback on Goldie's statement about MPG, miles per gallon. We're all really comfortable with that when it comes to our vehicles, but we're not yet there with our buildings. But there's one key difference between the automobile industry and the building industry, and that's the centralization of the plant. Like, Detroit makes cars. It's easy to put standards on something that's all built in one place and then shipped out. And it's a lot harder to do that on a distributed model, which is what buildings are. And we're building buildings all over the place. It's a lot harder to standardize that. So, to some respects, we have to demand that and make our policymakers act on that, because it's going to be very difficult for that to happen organically.
And you have to get the banks involved too. I mean, they have to want to see the value in it. I mean, the appraisers their hands are kind of tied too, but they do have a green appraisal addendum now. It's been out for years, and I and one other guy are the only ones I know that has ever used it. You're going to use it? Yeah.
I don't know if they know what it is.
They don't.
Yeah. And I will say that Holly is engaged in trying to educate the appraisal and real estate realtor community around the new use of greenfields, with some support from regional support. There's other people interested in that, but it's a challenge, and it's something that needs work.
Yeah, I mean the agents can only do so much too, right? Because of comps.
So we've got one more question from the audience here.
I was actually going to make a comment. So with what he asked about as far as how to market it, you guys are on the right track, and the biggest side of it is going to be educating the people that your clientele are in order to push them in that direction. You just gave a perfect example of something I was going to use. If you show them, you spend an extra $5,000 and buy foam instead of just extra insulation, and do, a few different things with sealing the house up, not only is your house going to be healthier, it's going to be substantially more comfortable, and the energy savings you're going to get back from that, you're going to pay back in such a short period of time when you consider, like what he was talking about earlier, the amount of energy you're going to use over the life of that home. It's exactly that. It's a no-brainer for anybody that's going to live in it. And I understand it is a hard sell because you can't see it. That's the hardest thing about it. You can sell granite countertops all day long because they're pretty and people can see them, but trying to convey to them, and you're starting to see it more out of the city market itself, and you get more rural with the energy efficiency stuff because of the different fuel sources that they have to use, being straight electrical, propane, different things like that, where having an inefficient home really drives up how much they spend. And I go in and consult on a lot of different things where people are paying almost a second mortgage monthly through some of the winter months and things like that because of the associated cost of things like that. So to point out what he was...
The HERS score is...
Right.
You have to build trust in that. And, sell that. I mean, it's the only thing the EPA will look at. It has credibility to it. It's the top shelf.
But I think what you're doing is great. Education and knowledge is the key to get people to drive and actually do something on it.
And bigger entities too. Get the city involved. The city of Boise really, really wants to push this, but unfortunately they just can't figure out how. I don't go to them anymore. They never really went anywhere, but the governor or the they have these great visions and agendas and just nothing gets done. Sad.
Well, part of it is, like you said, there's not any standardized method. If they have, and it is hard because you are building a different product for different regions, different climates, anything like that. But it almost needs to be, they do have an insulation standard by the Department of Energy for insulation recommended by region. I mean, associated with that, there should be something on the building side of it that, gives you a minimum, which is what everybody unfortunately operates off. But, it should be proposed a good, better, best option, which would be the higher efficiency score, likewise.
One of the difficulties in trying to legislate those things is that prescriptive methods are very difficult to work with. So guys like Goldie and Scott, thank you. I lose names real fast. They're working to do careful air sealing, careful insulating, all of the other things that you do in that process. And the customer would like to, take advantage of a view that they have on their lot. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to put a 1 square foot window on this wall because it's more efficient. I mean, you've got to deal with a lot of variables there. So the thing that, like Goldie said, if you would legislate that you need to have a rating on the house, that means that you're going to do a model, an energy model on the house, and then you're going to be able to make trade-offs here and there, and you get the result of that in the number for the HERS. But if you just try to set up a purely prescriptive thing that says, okay, you're going to have R38 insulation in the attic and you're going to have R21 insulation in the walls or whatever, you can't really cover all the stuff that conscientious builders actually cover when they're doing that work.
There are not enough code officials to go around.
The reason I quit being an Energy Star builder, and I think a lot of builders did, is because they pinched down their standards to a point where I couldn't build homes unless my clients wanted to put in windows that were like a U factor of 0.2 and drive the window costs up 10 times or something. Because you can horse trade, so to speak. But that's one reason there wasn't enough flexibility in it for me to perform. I could get a house that performed Energy Star by 3 times, but I wasn't meeting the Energy Star standard.
So we're kind of talking about what's called the performance path to code compliance, and the prescriptive path is thou shalt put X amount of insulation in the walls, and your windows shall perform to X standards. But there's also this performance-based path where if you build a really well-performing home, you can still meet those energy performance standards, and that should count for something. So that's called the performance path to code compliance.
Really quick while we're on that topic, I think we're in danger of having our codes just sort of creep this way towards mandating a prescriptive amount of insulation. And that's kind of bothering me. Like if roof systems need to go to R60, it's going to change the way you build the roof, and it's not going to be worth it. So yeah, I see that one happening right now, and it's going to be a problem.
I'd like to pivot the conversation while we have our design professional on the panel to some planning considerations. And one basic question is, like in Treasure Valley, what's the key driver of where green homes are being built? I mean, everybody thinks of the north end, obviously, but where are green homes occurring in Treasure Valley? And Holly, you can weigh in on this too.
We have one that's in the foothills east.
Well, I mean, I think you have to clarify what green are you mean certified green home?
High performing homes. It doesn't have to meet a third party standard.
My limited experience is it's the client and it's the land value, and that drives where you're going to put it.
So our green healthy home is off of Fairview, off of Shamrock, right in Boise. So it's definitely not the north end, but it is slab on grade and a lot of the other goodies that seem to make it. It's solar. It's situated to be solar, passive solar, and we have a solar water heater system and radiant floors, and so it's reasonably green, and it's right in off of Fairview.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, our industry does have a definition of green, so you got to be really careful, you know, if you're a business saying that. I know that the remodelers have their definition of green too. Certified green homes, I think that there's a couple out in Eagle that, what's his name, Thompson builds, Jeff Thompson. There is some out at, I'm drawing a blank on the builders, but I think Brighton did one. You know, so there's some scattered around, but none of those bigger builders have taken the, you know, bulls by the horn and run with it.
Yeah. So it's kind of consistent with your comment about no spec builders are building tracts of green home. It's just where the demand happens to be, where the client says, I'd like a green home.
And in some ways, I think that makes Boise an anomaly, because, you know, there's a lot of other markets where there are, you kind of have a panel of boutique builders here. You know, kind of like Scott said, we're not speculating. You know, we're not going out doing full tracts of homes. We're really building for one client at a time what it is that they are asking for and are their values. But there's places, you know, all over the United States where there really are markets, and where there are builders who are putting themselves on the line to build to certified green standards, whether they're the USGBC standards, the NAHB standards, and you know, even in Idaho, there's northern Idaho.
Coeur d'Alene, this subdivision has about 80 LEED Platinum homes in it.
Yeah, some stuff on the eastern side of the state. There's the places you would expect. Austin, Texas, San Francisco, Portland. You know, there's places like that really stand out. But it feels odd that, you know, you think of, okay, within the state of Idaho, Boise is the place where we ought to have the most, aggregation of drive for higher standards, and maybe, but that doesn't seem to be true. The friend of mine that does most of the LEED certification for the state of Idaho rarely works in Boise. You know, she's over in Pocatello. She's up in Coeur d'Alene, Ketchum area, Twin Falls, other places, and that's on it. So I think that's interesting you say it's there's a standard here, and nobody in Boise yet has been willing to put a actual certified full subdivision together. And it's a great question. Why are they scared of that? What are the chances that the first person who does that is that's just going to sell out? It's odd because all over the country we've seen those those subdivisions be very, very successful.
Yeah, the mayor wants to make Boise the most livable city in the country.
Yeah. And you think houses would be part of making the place livable?
I don't want to knock it because he's really for it, but they can't figure out a way to actually help anybody who's trying to do it.
Let's hear what the realtor has to say.
I think you're finding higher efficiency homes all over the valley. You find a lot of builders out in the West End and in Meridian, which are utilizing the HERS rating system. And so there's a lot of that going on. I think, in terms of getting really creative with high efficiency, I think you're probably going to have to go where you've got a demographic that has a lot more discretionary income. And in general, and also, some of the lifestyle of people that would like to build a more higher efficiency home, they're going to want to be closer to the foothills. They're going to want to be closer to the river. They're going to want to take advantage of all of what the valley has to offer. So, I would think that we'll probably see projects that are a little bit more creative and the highest efficiency in those areas. Although you'll find some builders in the East End that are building homes that don't meet Energy Star code. So that's kind of a challenge. Anyway, that's kind of what I think about that.
I'm going to go ahead and call out what's that big subdivision on the East Boise Harris Ranch. They should be doing that. Let me go ahead and say that.
The demographic that will buy into a subdivision, a large-scale subdivision, is probably going to be a demographic, more so to get it really going. It's going to be in that east end or the north end, but we don't have the land. The land is just way too expensive. So we have to go west to do that. And a lot of the people that are of that mindset don't want to commute 25 minutes to get downtown. It's sort of, it's counterproductive for them. So I think it's going to be a matter of finding the right location and price of land, and that will drive, the price of the overall project.
One other thing too, that is hard to take into consideration on the aspect of things too. You noticed all of the areas that he did mention where that stuff is going on all has much harsher climates than what Boise does. And the problem that we don't have here is until we get a severe winter like we had a couple of years ago, people don't find out that their homes, in fact, do not work. They don't, that's really what it boils down to. Until we actually get something to push the envelope for people to actually find out that their house, A, isn't sealed up, isn't maintaining heat, their bills go through the roof, things like that. That's one of the main reasons why we haven't seen much happen here in Boise, is because we have the most moderate climate of anywhere in Idaho. And that's the other side of it, is we have fantastic, we have hydroelectric, production, and now we've got a lot of wind stuff coming in and things like that. We don't pay nearly what they do in other parts of the state, which is one of the general, driving factors of, costing people money. They will spend money to save money. But just trying to approach it, kind of like what she said, you almost have to take the green label off of it and approach it from a realistic standpoint, I feel, in order to get people to do it, because they don't necessarily just want to do it to be green. That's a very targeted small percent of people that have it.
It's relevant of climate, because if I'm 25% more efficient, I'm 25% more efficient.
I agree with that, but the difference is it costs you half as much to keep your square footage here as it does somewhere else at 25% efficiency. No, and I agree 100%. If you're 25% more efficient, you are still using 25% less energy than an equivalent home. But that same home, demographically, somewhere else, may use 3 to 4 times the energy of what yours does, even if it is as high as yours, just depending on where the location is.
Yeah.
I disagree that Boise's a moderate climate. I think you could make that argument maybe in San Francisco or, Portland.
I'm saying moderate compared to the rest of Idaho or kind of the cities that
I think you're right that in McCall or somewhere it's going to be a lot more expensive to heat a home. But I think that Boise doesn't have any excuse. There's enough there's enough heating degree days that it will, you need to do something here too. So if you're in San Francisco and you have, you don't really have much to, you can improve, but it's not as difficult as other places.
Sure. And if we, we've heard a couple of people mention that we should move the conversation beyond green, beyond energy efficiency, things that, other things that matter to people. And, one thing that comes to mind for me is insects. A lot of people don't like insects in their home, and a well-sealed home keeps the insects out. So there are leverage points we can use on the market to let them know why a high-performing home makes sense. One more thing on the planning consideration side, and this is a question kind of about the site. So let's say you're a new home want-to-be owner, and you're looking for a lot. Are there key factors that you want to avoid or you want to look for, or can most sites be accommodated?
I'll just give my little take on that right away. I just work pretty much exclusively in Boise and Garden City, and I almost have to negate any site considerations and not shoot for like any kind of solar gain because the lots are so well defined and they keep getting smaller and smaller. So I found myself focusing a lot more on the house and not the site because the parameters are so tight.
Mm-hmm. That sounds kind of consistent with urban environments to me.
So with the passive house modeling that we do, we can see immediately the relationship between the amount of solar gain and the amount of insulation that it takes. So if you have a lot that is completely shaded or it's between two buildings and you don't get a lot of solar gain, you definitely are going to have to make up for that lack of sun in some other way. You don't want you don't want it to be completely heated by the sun, but it does help. And so I think if you really want to go to a high level of, really reducing the loads, you have to make up for a lack of solar gain with more insulation, better windows and things like that. So there's definitely an advantage to having a lot that has, some sort of southern exposure to the sun. You just can't get around that. If you have a shaded place in a valley that never gets sun, you're going to have a hard time, really bringing your loads down. And I guess, I would like to say with regards to this sort of siting of a single-family residence, I think that that's the worst possible way that you could build a house or dwelling is a single-family residence. And I think if there's opportunities to do, maybe a 3-4 row house or any sort of multifamily, you can deal with the lack of sun in a lot better way. So I think if there's opportunities to make multifamily projects, that's a really good way to deal with the difficult site.
While you have the microphone, let's get your number one take on sustainable homes from the design side.
From the design side? For me, I think if you really want to understand what's going on with how much energy you're using, how much energy your house needs, you need to model it with some sort of modeling software. And I think that will inform the entire process, starting from the building, what materials you're going to use, how much insulation we need here, what trade-offs we can make. And so I think that energy model can really bring together a lot of things. You can predict how much you're going to, let's say that you model it, you can predict how big of a PV or solar panel array that you might need to go to net zero. So I think there's all kinds of advantage to that if you have that availability and you can use it, or if you can get with someone that can consult with you to inform your design from the beginning, that's a really good thing to try to do.
And I'd like to ask the same as Steve. Your number one takeaway on sustainability and materials while we've got you on the panel.
The challenge I think that we run into is the vast majority of home building is just throw it up as fast as you can and keep the cost down. So when we get asked questions of how I want to build an energy efficiency home, just locating the products and being able to get them here. We have tried at different times at our store to stop certain products, and more often than not, they don't move. And some wood products have a lifespan. Can't leave them out in the yard for too long, or they go bad and twist and warp and split. So really, the challenge is doing your homework, finding out what you can get. We get requests all the time for products that people have found on the internet. The internet's a great thing, but that doesn't mean that everything's here in Boise that you found in Yugoslavia or whatever. So,
or just other parts of the country. I found
True.
a really cool product at the International Builder Show about 4 years ago, and I was all excited. I came home, so they said, since I'm the only one requesting it, I had to buy a semi-truckload myself. You know, and it was OSB that had a half-inch of rigid infused onto it, so it had your thermal break right on it.
Great product,
really
great idea.
Cool.
Yeah.
But not here, it still isn't here.
I heard the other day that you're carrying a flashing product that's a liquid-based flashing product. Somebody told me it was a great product.
I think they're handling that out of our roofing supply company.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to get out and find that. That's I'm definitely interested in.
It's kind of like what is it? Hot, not tar roofing system, but it's something similar to that.
Yeah, but instead of using the Vicor or whatever you might use to, or the Tyvek tape, that it's a liquid flashing system.
Correct.
So.
Well, I thank you all for your answers and all of you for your questions. We have one more for this panel before they adjourn.
Where would you rank Idaho in terms of access to new building green technologies? As a state, I'd say that's a barrier to building in Idaho compared to like Oregon or Washington.
Sure. It seems like everything that is ever created comes to Idaho last. is what it feels like. It's like Scott's experience. I'm familiar with that product. They brought that to us 4 or 5 years ago, and the idea and the concept, it's a great idea. We did some research. We went out and talked to some of our builders, and they all thought it was a great idea until they saw the price. And our supplier here in town was unwilling to bring it in so that we could have it readily available. Things are available at a cost. It's just the demand, I think, really drives products.
Cottage lap siding is very available, right?
Oh, it's very available because we're replacing it all the time because it wears out more quickly than anything I've ever dealt with.
Yeah, I heard we're the largest consumer of cottage lap siding in the country.
We have a unique,
it's the cheapest siding you could put online.
Yeah, we have a unique climate in that we're one of the few areas in the United States where it actually lasts longer than anywhere else, and even that has a lifespan.
So we're ready for the break. I would just add to that I get to go to a lot of regional events, and the knowledge is here in Idaho. It may be not as mainstream as in some other states, but it's here. Yeah, you don't. If you've paid through them, you don't have to pay us.
Oh, I wrote my name on
Okay, good. I'd like to know who you are, but you don't have to. I'm sure they'll tell me too. But yeah, good. So yeah, make yourself comfortable with the snacks and drinks. The boxes, it just make your own change. Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah, no, it's honor system. Yeah.
How are you, man?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm glad you made it.
Quite an illustrious group here. I talked to several of these gentlemen when we were thinking about building our house.
Yeah, well, these are the guys. I mean, there are home builders like Brighton Homes builds more, and they do a lot of Energy Star. Large, harder to show up. These guys, nice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, now they get cheers. Pretty good turnout. I don't know if they chairs.
They would put the OSB in the spots where they had to, and then the rest of it sound what's called the blackboard. For red, you only have to put your shear panel in a certain location, but that kind of went away. As OSB costs go down so much that it's actually cheaper to put OSB on the entire house than to put the insulation panels in.
Are you guys up next?
No, it's gonna be Holly and
I was
Irwin.
excited. I just wanted to be in the car. Looking at buying a home and probably doing some I was in the office earlier today and I heard people say, I know. I mean, I can do
You were coming in? Great. So I think there was 3 of you. That's great. This is the first one we've advertised through there. And so it's great to have you all here. Thanks for coming, and glad you saw it, found us. And then just FYI, most of our series is one presenter, slides, a specific topic, and then once a series we do this panel to kind of just open up the question and answer. And
So the series is like, it's 2.
It's 8 total. But I found out about the community education kind of late in the process, and I thought, hey, we might be a good fit. And they said, yeah, sure. And so these are the only
2.
Yeah. The spring ones, we'll have our spring ones in there too. We go through April. So we have coming up. We have solar, hot water, and photovoltaics. So the next ones are on solar energy.
Right. That's kind of what it's really focused.
Yeah, and that'll be the next 2. So
retrofitting.
we did one in October, and it was a case study of a guy that works for the Division of Building and Safety, and he did a deep energy retrofit on his home, saved 50% on his utility bills, and he did, just a regular renovation too, so he upgraded the house to, and that was in, and that was a topic this year. Available on our website if you want to view it. It's harder it's 2 hours is a lot to sit through a YouTube video, but it's a really informative thing. Yeah, it's on our website, USGBC Idaho, and we have a sustainable homes page. Let's see. If not, I'll just give you a. No, but I'll give, U.S. Green Building Council Idaho chapter. If you Google that, you would find us.
Okay.
But let me see if I've got something easier for you. This also does not have our website listed, but that's us, and that's the series. That's the page you're looking for on our webpage.
Okay.
And the topic was home energy retrofit case study. It was a 1970s home. There's a lot of them around, and it's out in here's in West Boise and Meridian, and really goes through step by step how he approached it. And I think his cost was either $12,000 or $20,000 probably 20 for the whole remodel, but he did 50% energy bill.
I remodeled mine, but I mean it's still not energy efficient. That's
Yeah.
what just drives me up.
Yeah.
You know?
So what do you have? Do you have anything left to do on the house?
I would like to put solar panels on.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to do that, and there's also there's one area of the house by the garage is connected to the house, so that area is just the other end of the house.
Jerry Peterson, and he's with the Division of Building Safety. He put this together. This is a radon report for Idaho, but his name is on that October series. You can find him he's a state employee, Division of Building Safety, and he'd be willing to talk to you about what you can do. And Irwin, here in the blue shirt, is a home energy auditor. So his job is to go around and look for the areas that need the most improvement. So those kind of services help a lot in a home energy retrofit. Jerry can speak to, like, in his experience, like, specifically. Thanks so much, Steve. Yeah, you too. He can tell you specific improvements like duct sealing, certain areas of the home where you air seal that are the most bang for your buck kind of thing. I think between his advice and it's still probably in your best interest to have a rater come in and tell you right where your specific issues are. Yeah, because they can find those spots, and that's their deal, and that's the route I would go. But I would check out that home energy retrofit case study, because what's nice about that is there's so many homes like it around. And yeah, well, I mean, he's been in his house for almost 40 years, and like once you've been there 20 years, you don't really want to go anywhere else.
The ideal thing would be to build efficiently.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, yes and no. If you look at how many existing homes are out there, though, like it makes a lot of sense to retrofit what we got. Yeah, because these homes are 40 years into their 100-year lifespan. Like we should probably just make them better. And
just like my dirt in my yard, I'm trying to make it all.
Yeah. It just takes time. I live in a house it's built in 1935, but it has flood irrigation, and 80 years of flood irrigation makes the soil pretty good. It's like,
It doesn't wash away.
Nope. Well, you would think it leaches it through. Well, that and trees, all the organic matter falling, but that much organic growth and decomposition, it's that helps a lot. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate
Josh, what's your interest in green homes? Are you going to build a new or remodel one you got, or like add on to what you have, or? And what's your line of work?
You're an engineer.
Is that a big firm, or is it just a small shop there above the? Oh yeah. Well, I've heard of White Cloud. I think it's White Cloud. They have a place down in Garden City too. Oh, I've heard of Clearwater. They're big, yeah. White Cloud, I guess I thought White Cloud also did like microwave internet service. I thought it was White Cloud. There's something similar sounding down in Garden City. But you're a software developer? How big is your shop? That sounds kind of, there's quite a few of the 20 to 50 size software companies around the valley, yeah. I have a friend who works for T-Sheets out in Eagle, and they're pushing 50 people, I think. Yeah. He's been, his name is Bobby Barnett. He's been with them for maybe he's going on a year now. But yeah, that's a really cool part of Boise's economy, and it's going to be big in the future too. And I think it will help drive green homes, because if people can limit their commuting a lot more flexibility with your work location and stuff when you're doing developing, and that'll be an interesting part of the new economy for sure. Important part of the new economy. What are the next? Well, we have two more, and they're both on solar hot water and solar photovoltaics. Here's a list of the whole series and what's coming up.
Did you guys publish
And we put the slides in but you can do it either way. You can also download the slides and just read the slides. And if it's strikes your interest, you can watch the whole video.
what website do I go to?
Go to our USTBC just Google USTBC Idaho, and you'll find it. And then that page has all these links on it. That's for improvement. Charlie thinks we're good. All right. Let's start to bring it together. Slaughterhouse? That's kind of my favorite local beer right now. That's so good. It's coming. All right, Josh, you need the first. Take your seat.
Yes, sir. What did you say, Chris?
Sure.
Before I had another one, maybe go look like beer drinker I am.
Year and a half apart.
I know my wife was going to the store the other day. But just something we never had around, but some that was on the See, I don't get all that. Early division flavors. Exactly. And it's mainly like vegetables.
Yeah.
Organic, of course.
Yes, exactly.
Jordan, do we need another chair for you? Can you want to stand up?
I like the way you do the two different panels. I like the way you mix it up.
Yeah, that's new for this year. We're, since I have more time to coordinate, that's my job. We can kind of make it a little more.
Getting a fine tune.
Yeah. What we need to do though is get a better format for the online. 2 hours of online is a bit much.
Sometimes the audio isn't the best.
I'm just.
Anyway, but no, I admire what you're doing. I think that those things are things maybe you need some help with.
Maybe we do need more. We need more capacity.
The audio.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 all in good time, right?
Yes. Every year a little better.
Yes.
All right. So we're reconvening here for part 2. We're happy to have Erwin Schweibert with Osprey Building Performance, Energy Auditing and Rating on the panel. Holly Noller with Avant Properties, Realtor, and Jordan, what's your last name? Yankovic, with Cornerstone Design finished products. So we're moving into sort of the latter phases of a residential project. And so, we've talked about materials, we've talked about some siting and design criteria, we've talked a lot about the industry and how we create demand for sustainable products and homes. Now we're going to think about kind of moving into the finish line. So we've got our foundation poured, and maybe we've got the roof on, and we're thinking about the finish line. So if anybody has a question to start off with, I'm game. Otherwise, I'll pick one from my list here. This is somewhat of a design consideration, but we last time, but to start things off. And this is a question I brought from Steve Howe from Past Builders Panels. And the question is, what do you think about flat roofs? Are we on?
So,
yep.
Just really quick, you got to be willing to pay the difference for the membrane. It's another one of those capital costs that's up front. And it would be great if we all had like dirt and green roofs. But there again, that's just a hard one to pitch for people to pay for.
And personally, I don't know cost effectiveness of a green roof in terms of your reduced cooling load or what it costs to maintain or install. And if anybody on the panel has any thoughts on that, it'd be great to hear. But they do accommodate green roofs, vegetation on the roofs.
There's more cost than just the membrane, because you're usually hand stacking those, right, in a TJI or a roof truss, and therefore to insulate it properly, you're usually got spray foam up in there, at least an inch or two, and, to build a cold roof. So yeah, they're cool, but they're kind of complex to build and spendy.
A little bit of fear factor.
Yeah, the leak.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? And then you have to take the
Yeah. I've never actually built one.
Yeah.
I've come real close to a 112, but done plenty of 112s, but the total flat I haven't done that.
Yeah, you see them mostly on commercial projects.
I think the biggest design consideration for flat is just, is it going to be useful in other ways? I mean, that's great party space. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if your design really lends itself to having a section of the roof that you walk out on, and that's the places really where I'm just trying to think. The places that immediately come to mind where we've done flat roof situations is because, there was a reason, and instead of, it was flat because it was doing double duty. So you weren't necessarily paying more for a roof. You were paying, less for a deck or that sort of thing.
Anything on the energy side to add there, Erwin?
Not really. If you get the R value there, then the energy is the same. So it's just a matter of building it in such a way that you've got the appropriate R value.
Okay. Anything else from the rest of our panel?
In terms of marketing that, I think there's only going to be a certain segment of the market that's going to be, find that appealing. So but there are certainly a lot of design considerations which make it appealing, I think. But you're going to narrow your field of buyers upon resale.
Okay. Well, that was kind of a niche question. So this is a question that is pertinent per the code discussion that's happening in our state. And the question is, can you build a home too tight? And so we can build homes where the air changes per hour or the leakage rate is very low. And then you've got concerns about indoor air quality and ventilation and how to recoup the heat you might be losing in the ventilation process. And so discussion on the tightness of a home and the need for a heat recovery ventilation system and the cost-benefit analysis of those trade-offs.
Well, my take on that is that the most important thing about air sealing is having control of where the air is coming from in your house. If you have a very leaky house, you don't know where the air is coming from. It may be coming through the attic, maybe coming through the crawl space. There can be all kinds of contaminants in that, so you can have an unhealthy environment in your house. So I think it's very valuable to seal it up tight and then control where the air comes from, the fresh air comes from. And yes, there is a cost associated with that because you have to put in a heat exchanger, an HRV or an ERV, if you get a very tight house in order to keep that fresh air in there. But it's a health issue. It's a little more expensive, but it's a health issue.
Any of our builders want to weigh in on that debate?
No. The answer is no. You can't.
No comment.
Right. The basic motto.
Yeah. I certainly hear that from green building advocates. I hear other people say, why would we build a home so tight and then have to introduce fresh air? And it's a big debate in Idaho right now. It really is.
Is it really a debate?
Oh yes. You should go to the Code Collaborative meeting sometime.
But that fresh air is conditioned at about 85 to 90% efficiency. So you're not spending money to keep the air in your house and then just pushing it out and doing cold air. So
if you're not familiar with a heat recovery ventilator, it is a heat exchanger. As the hot conditioned air from your house leaves, the heat energy is transferred to the incoming air, so you don't lose much of that energy in the exchange. What is the cost of a heat recovery ventilation system?
The box is below,
So $2,000 over the life of a home to have fresh air that you can recover the heat from, and you know where your fresh air is coming from.
I find it the healthiest item you can put in your home.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I went to a seminar a few years ago about the pollution that you create inside your own home, that you create inside your own home. And so even just for that kind of idea. And then condition crawl spaces, I began to use the HRV so that that's how I use the HRV to help take care of like my conditioned crawl space issues so that it gets air exchange. So it has a double duty. It's not just.
So we should add to that conversation that radon is a concern in the state of Idaho, and radon often makes its way into a home through crawl spaces, and a conditioned crawl space can alleviate that problem. Anything else? Yes, Josh.
I have a question. No. Just now that we have a professional designer on the panel. Yesterday I was meeting with clients, and it's like, so what do you recommend for countertops? There always hits that point in the question where you get at that point in the process where you get at. So I'm curious who's somebody who has to answer that question as a professional with this. Okay.
So I can pick one, but the ultimate
answer to that comes down to how they're going to be used, who's using them, how long they need to last. We gave a presentation about a year ago, and we talked about the various qualities of different countertop materials, the embodied energy for each. Stone is obviously wonderful because it'll last forever, but is your client going to keep it forever? Or are they going to be changing out in 3 years because they need to move on to something newer and better and whatnot? So then maybe they need to go push block. Do they have health concerns, and are they, concerned about all the lamb they're preparing, and they don't want to use wood? Then they need to go to something else. So it does entirely depend on the situation. If you give me more of the situation, maybe I could guide. But there are great options: engineered stone, recycled materials held in a bond like a resin.
And there were some cool products you showed with that.
I mean, we have them in our studio, and it's great. It's more than just the crushed up beer bottles. It's really cool dimension that you can get. I'm still waiting for some really good recycled quartz material, and I think one came across my desk today, but I haven't dove into it. But there are lots and lots of options. There's some great recycled poured glass countertops that I've seen. Can I get access to them easily? No, but someday.
Isn't Caesar stone considered recycled quartz?
I've done some research on it, and everyone's a little fuzzy about how much of their content is actually recycled. It's really hard to actually track that down.
What is Caesar stone?
It's an engineered stone, so it's quartz dust held in a bonding. I don't remember exactly what the agent is there. Beautiful engineered stone.
While we're talking about it, paper stone?
Yeah, that is the brand name of a paper composite surface.
And it comes in the different thicknesses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I would love to use that.
Yeah. We have it in our studio as well. We have it in our workroom. It has limitations. It does.
Like 4 times as much as granite.
Yeah. It's been a while since we put it in, so I don't know what it costs today or even what it cost then, but it has limitations. It will scratch. We bring tile samples and set them across, and I stupidly just grab them and slide, and then there's a big mark, but you can't get them buffed out. So a craft room, an office, these are great applications. Anything where somebody may get a wild hair and chop a carrot on it, forget it.
Holly, you sell homes, so what is the durability of a style? Like, when is something considered out of date and no longer appealing to the clientele?
That's subjective. That's a tough question to answer. For a while everybody wanted granite, and now granite's out and it's quartz, and so it really depends on the person. If it's new construction, it's much easier to answer that question. If it's resale, that lags behind. People don't really put the money into the remodel. They're hesitant to do that. They're going to get their money back, and to a certain extent, they're not going to get it all back. So, can I be any more ambiguous?
Yeah. Well, I think what I'm hearing is it's exactly what you think it is. If you walk into a bathroom and it's pink, it's probably out of date. And
yeah, well, sure. There are some definite. Well, I tell my clients we want to make your house vanilla. You don't want people to remember grandma's kitty collection, on the wall. So in terms of the design features that you choose, if you are going to do a remodel, make it, understated, beautiful, so that anyone can work with it, and then you'll be successful. Unless it's just such a fabulous focal point that you just have to go with it.
Sure.
Outside of that, don't do anything out of the ordinary.
What do you think about reclaimed for countertops?
Well, I love the idea, but I think it would be fabulous. But not everyone's going to love that. So that the general buying market will probably say, I think that's really cool, but how am I going to use that, and what's the durability? So if the homeowner educates the agent and they're able to sell them on that, then I think that's great. The challenge is that the listing agent has to sell it to the selling agent, and who then has to sell it to their client. So again, on a resale, I would say probably vanilla, unless you're going with a specific style and you're going to push it all the way and do it really well. I think given the right area, I think it would absolutely be cool, and I think you could I think, if you're in the right area and marketing to the right demographic, it will go in a heartbeat. You just have to be very careful where you do it and how you do it.
Well, and hardwood, at least for flooring, has stood the test of time. People still like hardwood. Wood is tough to go wrong with. Yeah. So that kind of brings us to a topic of what are the hot green features right now? Oh, yes, questions are good.
No, I was actually just going to go on with that because I bought a house that needs remodeling, and the one thing is the kitchen countertops, and everyone keeps telling me you're going to have to put in granite. And my point is, it's more money than I want to put in the house, and if I'm going to sell this house in 10 or 20 years, is the granite going to be outdated by then? And so what are some of my options now for a cheaper countertop? I don't want to invest, quartz in the house. Is there something that would still be sellable? I would put in I'm telling you, I'd put in for mica and be happy with it. But everyone keeps telling me I'm not going to be able to sell it.
No, I was just going to tell you to do it.
But then tell me I can't sell it.
No, it's like the edge treatment. If you do something fun with the edge treatment, mica can be the bomb.
And it's totally green these days.
Don't do anything with the edge treatment. No, I think there are some great micas and great laminates too, which I think is less cost first of all for laminate, and you can get kind of a style look with laminate, and that's easier for people to think I'm going to rip it out. So I think people look at, and I don't know if you've experienced this, people look at Corian or mica solid surface and think, well, it's perfectly good. I should probably use it, but they feel bad about tearing out laminate. That's about it.
Good point. Yeah. Don't invest a lot of money in something that you're hoping to get your money back out of it, or even if you're going to be there for 20 years, it's going to be so out of style. Maybe if you put laminate, people will see that if they don't love it, they'll know it's not going to cost them a lot to replace it. So I would say don't invest a lot.
And there are some laminates out there with less terrible quality than regular, plastic laminates. They are hard to find, and people have to wait.
I've had marmoleum on countertops before.
Right.
Marmoleum.
There's the name brand of marmoleum.
Yeah, it's made out of used plastic. No off gassing.
And it actually.
But I wouldn't put it in the kitchen.
So while we're on the hot topics, let's talk about what's hot in both interiors and hot for green features. So we'll start with interiors. And I have a friend who does hardwood and tile, and he says you have to have earth tone tiles with a band of small tiles above your big tiles, and that's the thing right now. And everybody wants that, and that will change in 2 years' time. But hot in finishes right now.
That is the thing. You're right. That is the thing. With our market and our clients, we try to, move beyond the thing. So we are always trying to push and experiment and do different things. Large format tiles are getting better and more exciting, and tile is a very exciting time right now. It sounds really boring, but it is. We're getting more and more tiles with recycled content. A lot of European influence comes over because Europe has had to recycle their tile. They have nowhere to go, especially Italy. We don't have the landfill space. And then these larger formats are becoming interesting. Printing technology is incredible. You can get a look still in a porcelain tile because they don't print it. They'll take a roller over it and then they'll stand it on top of it. And until you get out there, it's in your face. You don't even realize it. So tiles is really exciting, and I think there's lots of different things going on in just a little accent strip. So it is a thing, but then it's a great way to mix materials. If you want to do large marble natural stone tile, then cut in some recycled glass.
Well, that might be for the whole panel, but green features, like in general, and when consumers are wanting green, what's the hot thing in the residential market right now? And I know we touched on HRVs, which I agree with Scott. That is sort of the quintessential component piece to making a home with good indoor air quality. But beyond that, what's hot right now?
What's really important, I think, it's not necessarily a design element, but people that are purchasing an existing home think about efficiency in terms of the systems. Have they been replaced? And if so, how efficient are they? And that actually is very important to people, which makes me believe that you can sell high efficiency homes because people do, care about that. So that's kind of the hot topic that I see.
Can I ask a follow-up question to you there, Holly? So like you can go to your water heater and see what date it was manufactured and have an idea, and it'll have the efficiency labeling on it. Do people stop there, or are they thinking about the things they can't see, like the attic insulation and the wall insulation?
They do think about those things, and that's when I recommend always that they get a good home inspection, and a good home inspector will be able to evaluate that to a certain extent, and or identify areas where they need to bring in more qualified contractors to evaluate the systems.
Just really quick, you're talking about hot items or design features? So I'm on this kick and feature hydronic heating system in 2 inches of concrete, and every client I've had just love them. They love them for the comfort and when we get done, the way they look and stuff like that. So. And
are your homes ductless?
Right. Well, they're ductless, but then I go put an HRV in them, so I kind of had some
ducting. And what about your insulation below that flooring?
I need to do more.
What?
Way to beat yourself up, Cole. Nice.
No, I do a conditioned crawl space, and it's got perimeter insulation, and then the floor has got some insulation.
I want to go back to her comment about getting a good home inspection, because having bought a home in the house last year, I had trouble finding anyone who would do thermal imaging to see how the insulation was, and I'd had trouble finding somebody who would do a radon test for me. What are you finding?
Well, not all buyers ask for that, and so it's just a matter of really doing research. I'm not sure that to be honest, I haven't had a lot of buyers in 10 years ask for that. There are inspectors out there that will perform those tests.
House masters will do a radon test.
Yeah.
House masters?
There are a variety of them that are out there, and if just, on the internet, usually a real estate agent has a list of 10 inspectors, and perhaps, yeah, that's where it's just research on the part of the buyer, absolutely.
Takes a couple of days. You got to collect it.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you've got to build that into your inspection time, because now we only have 5 business days, so
right.
you have to plan ahead.
Radon is a real tricky issue, because with a new construction, you're supposed to have lived in the home for a month or two before you conduct the test, so that the home is operating, per normal, and the levels have built up, and that you can get an accurate test. But at that point, you've already bought the home and moved in. So it's real tricky. And statewide, they don't want to do a prescriptive code requiring new construction to have passive or active ventilation system. So buyer beware. I mean, you're essentially on the hook. We have counties in Idaho that will test at 1,000 times the EPA defined safe level. So it's a real deal in Idaho. And at this point, the best we can do is just educate the public. And this is
They're not educated.
No.
One person on the question.
Yeah, no, and this information is just coming out of Department of Health and Welfare. This is a booklet that the Division of Building Safety put together based on Health and Welfare's data, and that's why it's here, so we can start to talk about it. But it's a concern, and we need to talk about it more so that the buyers are demanding this testing. Yeah. No, so and ideally, I think it would be part of the financing mechanism. Your home will not be, you do not qualify for mortgage until that radon level is mitigated. And that is that it works that way in other states. And Idaho should definitely be one. We have a lot of granite-derived soils. That's where the radon comes from. And it's a real problem in Idaho.
I was going to say one thing that is starting to finally get more to Idaho that is done elsewhere is whole home performance testing, primarily the use of thermal imaging and blower door applications. The neat thing about it is it's, you can see how tight the house is if you're building brand new, but if you're looking at buying an older home, it will give you, instead of, I can sit at a table all day and measure every door and window and calculate air leakage and loss and everything else from an energy efficiency standpoint. Go in with strip tests and take all sorts of array of different things to see what's actually in the air and things like that. But I stick that blower door in. It is a test that's based on a specific parameter that's done the same for all buildings or all homes. And it gives you an exact criteria for what your energy loss is. And then you go through and scan it with the camera and smoke, and you find out exactly where your house is breathing, like what he was talking about. Then you can go back in and take methods to seal it up and things like that, so you can control where the air that's coming into your home is done from.
And to that, I'd like to hear Irwin's take on this, since we're talking about testing and energy testing and ventilation testing. So if you could weigh in on that, Irwin.
Well, I really agree with all the things that people have been saying, and in fact, that's one of the services that we perform.
Do you find that you get asked to do that for people buying homes? Do you ever see that home performance being asked for by a buyer?
Actually, I don't see it being asked for. It's not inexpensive. You know, we do a pretty thorough job, and most people just will not fork over the money to learn, what the house is doing.
Sure.
At least around Idaho, and part of the reason for that is because our energy costs are so low. You know, in other parts of the United States, where energy costs are much higher, that becomes a fairly small cost relatively, because there's a lot more to be saved if they make the improvements. But here, people aren't dissatisfied with their electricity bills and their gas bills.
Mm-hmm. So, and this might be a question more for Holly, who's on the sales side, but if you go buy a home, there are fixed costs. You know, you have a realtor fee, you have a closing fee, you've got origination fee on your loan. These are costs that everyone takes for granted. If we put in another, what is a home energy audit on average?
In the $450 to $550.
So it's half of a loan origination fee. If that was baked into the cost of buying or selling a home, is that cost prohibitive, or is that something that would fly?
Well, I don't think it really is cost prohibitive. In fact, people pay $400 or so, about the same price for a home inspection, which doesn't give you any quantitative information about energy.
Right.
It does look at other aspects of the house that are important.
I have a comment about that. It was flat kill.
And that's what I was going to say. You can't expect a homeowner, a seller that has a home that's built in 1975 to negotiate with a buyer over energy, unless the systems that are expected to aren't performing. It's just, you just say you're not buying any home.
Right.
Well, and like he said earlier, if it came down to it and people actually had their homes tested, you would have a number of builders be completely and utterly embarrassed about the quality.
Right.
But that's what it would open people's eyes to it, which is what needs to be happened. But
it could be a tool of value too.
I agree.
Two homes on the north end, they're both gorgeous, and one's big and one's efficient. And, maybe the efficient one's, a few $1,000s more, but still.
Yeah.
I would say that is something a seller would have done and use that as a marketing tool. But for that to become a requirement for resale homes, it would really throw the marketing tool.
You can figure, some of the associated costs with the stuff that you'll find with that $550 test go $10,000 to $40,000 on a $200,000 home.
Sure. And who splits that? Do you split that cost with the seller, or is it all on the seller?
Well, it depends on where you're at. If you're in your entry level price point, buyers can't afford that.
Mm-hmm.
The higher you get in your price point, the seller or the buyer has a little bit more discretionary income, and they can make that choice. But then the lending also comes into play, and appraisal. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
What if it was just data? Okay, you're buying a home and it's an energy pig. You can still buy it. I don't care.
Sure. you can buy a 1972 car, and it's probably going to use more gas than a new car. I think of the.
So I wouldn't recommend right now that we require to sell a house you have to have an energy audit. There are some jurisdictions that do that, but I don't think that would work in Idaho. And the thing that will happen with the existing house market is that if you start doing that, those houses are not going to have very good ratings, and it's going to be a real problem. Sellers are not going to want to know this because if they know it, they have to disclose it.
Yeah. And then it becomes a problem with it.
But we know that because it's old. But it's an older home. We should expect that.
Yes, you should expect that.
I mean, it's,
What if the seller didn't sell that house now and you become all rentals? Okay, you can sell your house, it's not efficient. It becomes a rental. The landlord has no incentive to make it more efficient. You still have this potentially efficient home.
Mm-hmm. So the question is, if you deter sales and force homes into being rentals, there's still no incentive to upgrade them in the energy efficiency realm.
I think if change happens gradually, it would be
Yeah.
It would be great to incorporate that into the sales process, but to just all of a sudden mandate that.
Yeah, can the market handle that information? You can't handle the truth.
You can't handle it.
I know, but I keep coming back to the miles per gallon, and it's an important piece of information that, in a lot of people's opinion, would make the market operate more efficiently, in terms of valuation and in terms of remediation for homes that weren't performing well. We're not going to solve that in this room. So,
one other comment. I think far too much emphasis has been placed on the return on investment on energy efficiency in existing homes. What we need to realize is that concurrent with that energy efficiency or energy inefficiency are the health issues and the comfort issues. People have to realize that this is not just all about energy efficiency. If they've got, say, I guess it was you that mentioned it, if they've got children with asthma, well, maybe they need to find this out. They may be spending, $50,000 over the course of their child growing up on hospital visits, when in fact they could solve it with $10,000 worth of improvements in the house. So we need to quit saying that the only thing we're dealing with in energy efficiency is the cost of utilities.
Mm-hmm.
The comfort issues and the safety issues are really more important.
And harder to quantify.
Yes.
But important. Oh goodness. So these are tough. These are definitely this is the root of the debate, and this is why the market is so changed. These are tough issues. So leaving that for the time being, existing building renovation versus new construction. In an ideal world, what's better?
I feel guilty every time that I recommend we just tear it down. It's money. It's just money.
Costs more for new?
It costs more to retrofit something.
Okay.
And then it doesn't go again.
That's true. That's why, these houses in the north end that you see dragged up on cribs and there's 10 studs left. That costs that client $30,000 to save 15 studs. That's just not reasonable. That's what?
That's historic.
Yeah. Well, yeah. think there's a point though where you cross. If you're gonna, I mean, the last time that we did that, I think we saved about 20 studs in the house. You know, it's just all the siding's gone, all the sheathing's gone, the roof's gone. I've got a couple floor joists left, and the client paid $30,000 for that to save all that wood. You know, it's.
I would hear something Phoenix. They do this very commonly because it's considered a remodel and not a new build, and it's different permits and easier to get through down there. Is that happening here?
In the historic district, I mean, yeah, all that. If your house is contributing in the north end or east end, yeah, you have significant hoops to jump through. You have to save it, and that's where you're getting into the 20 studs that we save.
Erwin has some. We were talking during the break, and about how different the whole remodel is versus new on that. And if you're dealing with the whole house, yeah, potentially pushing something over and starting from scratch makes sense. But for the most part, that won't happen. I mean, the most durable part of any house is the address. The fact that it's that it's a house and that somebody thinks of it as a house, it will probably always be thought of as a house. It will probably still be a house in 700 years, even though not a single part of it is still the same. And so, what happens is things don't get done all at once. What happens is your roof has gone bad, and it's time to deal with the roof. Well, at the point where you're dealing with the roof, you have a great opportunity to deal with that, with the thermal envelope, to get more insulation there, to potentially set it up for solar. There's a point where, when Steve Floyd was sitting right here last time talking about the cotton glass siding, that always goes back. Most of the homes here have that, and that siding is going to go bad. And the point where you affect all of the walls, whether it's from the outside or the inside, what a great opportunity to make that wall thicker. So I do think the furnace goes out, the water heater goes out. There's all these times when a certain system in the house fails, and there is an opportunity to make an incremental extra investment at that point, which is not going to take that old house up to, the level of performance of something that Moldy or Scott would build, but it will take it up a notch. And over the course of 40 to 50 years, over the course of the life of a mortgage, most of the systems in a house will have to get replaced. And those are all opportunities. And if all of those opportunities are taken at the end of that time, we do have a place, which is that existing address, this home which people have an emotional attachment to, and it's, it's valuable for reasons which have nothing to do with the grant cost or energy efficiency. It's because of whatever the neighborhood kids we raise here, the dog that's buried in the backyard, all of these whole other things that make us human beings. And so for me, that's why I care about the remodel side of it. Because I feel like there's just a lot of, there's just all this existing housing stock that is not going to go away. People love it or not, that they're going to do that kitchen, they're going to do that bathroom, they're going to try, and, they're going to try and work with their family. And those are, and those are, so often failed opportunities. Those are, how often do you get that chance to redo that piece of it?
Just to add to that. No, that's great. If you remodel properly, you can do stuff like not have to resize your furnace. So there's that kind of aspect to it. When you go to add a room or redo the insulation, add 30% floor space. But if you do it in a responsible manner, you don't have to necessarily get a new furnace. So, that kind of thing, or a new air conditioning system.
So this panel had a lot of loaded questions. Thank you for dealing with them. We're at 9 o'clock, so closing thoughts just down the line. You don't have to respond, but if you have one important thing that you haven't said and you'd like to, now is your opportunity.
Sealed roof systems and conditioned crawl spaces.
Design all of your ductwork in conditioned space. It sounds so easy, but it's not. But you have to think forward on it in design.
And the thing that I've heard from the Division of Building Safety is that there's a big divide between your mechanical folks and your builders. And so a builder that knows that this is a big issue is really valuable.
I would comment that house builders that are building, trying to do a good job of building their houses these days, it doesn't cost all that much to make significant improvements. If you try to go to net zero or something like that, then it gets much more expensive. But if you're just trying to do a good job of what's fairly conventional today, you can make a significant difference without a whole lot of additional cost.
I would say it kind of boils down to education in terms of getting the high performance message out there. Your average home buyer starts to look on the internet more than 2 years prior to the time that they from the time that they actually purchase. So, they really somehow need to get some sort of education. I know what we're all trying. That's kind of what this is all about. Get it out there early on so that by the time they get to the point where they're actually getting ready to execute and make that decision, they already know that they'd like to have a high performance home.
I think my comment would be to start thinking about finishes and interiors a lot sooner. Just part of the integrated design approach. Although I'm on the second half of the panel, it's better to start thinking of these things early. A lot of the healthy and sustainable interior finishes can affect construction. They can be feature walls that you want to think about ahead of time and really contribute and add to the overall interior architecture, but also to the health and sustainability, and not to mention too, some of the things that we do have to work with are not easily available, and we don't want to be, it's not value engineering to be, availability engineering at the end of the project, because now we're looking at something that is a great option, but we can't get it now. So plan ahead.
And I would add, I think Holly's point about education was kind of a refrain throughout the night, and she made the point about how do we, the consumer being on the internet in advance of buying a home and educating themselves. And what comes to my mind immediately is Zillow and Trulia. And maybe we should be lobbying the people that have a lot of presence in the consumer market and ask them to make these sustainable features more upfront in their user interface as well. So anything else from the audience? Oh, yeah, you kind of balked on that, Josh.
Barn doors. They're hot.
And they're green. So anything else from the audience?